Everyone in Yu-Gi-Oh knows what it's like to be board locked, and it's one of the most frustrating things you can run into as a Yu-Gi-Oh player. And it's also one of the most uncompetitive aspects of the game, because if you get just the right card, it basically prevents your opponent from even playing their hand. And what kind of card game, or any game for that matter, is a valid game if your opponent can't even make a move? And that is the problem that Konami is having right now. There's just so many cards that are meant to board lock, and some of them are meant to make up for the overpowered effects of other cards. So we're going to take a look at some of these cards and just discuss them and why they probably should be banned. All right, so right now I'm going to start. Monarchs Erupt isn't like a meta card. You can't slap it into every deck, but it is kind of a board locking card. Never before in Yu-Gi-Oh! Have monster effects been more important than they are now. Some monster effects are just really overpowered, and there's not a whole lot you can do about that because it's like every deck relies on monster effects. And that I'm okay with that. I'm okay with monster effects being really, really important. But when we have cards like the Monarchs Erupt, Monarchs Erupt is basically an archetype form of skill drain. And when you get first turn Monarchs or you get first turn Dracos, which are way more overpowered, you can just set down a Monarchs Erupts and then basically lock your opponent from doing anything because you have a monster that was summoned for 2400 attack with very little cost and an insane recycling, and you got Monarchs Erupt on the field, and it basically renders any move your opponent does as being completely useless because so many combos are done off of monster effects. And you don't have, this is very low. There's no maintenance to this card. You don't have to pay life points to keep it up. You don't have to tribute a monster. That is the problem. If these board locking cards had some sort of cost to them, it might be more okay. That's why things like we'll look up Imperial Order. Now, in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, 700 life points isn't all that much. If you paid something like half your life points, or something like 3,500 life points, Imperial Order might be much more modern and might be actually be able to be not limited. That's just my opinion, but life points aren't all that important. Still, I would be a fan. I'm still a fan of banning Imperial Order because this card, again, it locks your spells. Spells vital to today's meta. And if you draw it first turn, well, that's just insanely lucky. By having it limited, they're just already admitting that it's overpowered, and then to be able to even play a copy in your deck, well, they're just like giving someone a terrible reward for having tremendous RNG or luck, and that is not something we need to necessarily reward a whole lot more in Yu-Gi-Oh. There's already enough of a luck factor in play. Why bring cards like this that can so much reward the luck factor that it just completely destroys your opponent? It does not make sense to me. So we've gone over Imperial Order, we've gone over Monarchs Erupt. So, with Monarchs Erupt, we talk also about Skill Drain. Skill Drain, it costs basically nothing to activate and nothing to keep on the field. Also, a similar situation here. We should not have Skill Drain be a thing in general. And yeah, if I need to further explain why, I already discussed why. It should not be limited. It should be banned. It's kind of like the situation with Firewall. Yes, it doesn't matter how many copies you have in your deck, but just with the insane payoff of drawing it, it should not be in any deck. Also, we're going to take a look at a lesser known card, a lesser played card. And I know some people are like, well, decks that play this are often not overpowered. It doesn't matter. The locking effect, the no maintenance locking effect, and it's like often archetype specific. Secret Village of the Spellcasters should honestly be banned. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that. I might get a lot of rees in the comments if a lot of people watch this video. But if you get it first turn, this is heavily abused on, we'll say, Altergeist decks. Altergeist decks already abuse the system so much with having so many insane combos and being able to render your opponent's play utterly useless if Altergeist goes first. And Secret Village of Spellcasters already adds fuel to that fire. And it's kind of cool, like with Dark Magician decks, it makes them somewhat playable sometimes. That's the only redeeming quality is sometimes it gives decks like those a chance, but at the same time, it's not based on interaction with your opponent. It's based on just getting lucky enough to get your board set up first turn, which is not what makes a healthy Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's why Secret Village of the Spellcasters should be banned. All right, so there's probably a myriad of other locking cards. I'm going to talk about one that doesn't need bans. So, right, Royal Decree. At one point, this card was ban worthy because traps were so. They were a healthy part of the metagame. That's why Royal Decree was actually banned and limited at some points. But now traps are so nerfed that no one hardly ever plays them, and that's why Royal Decree right now should not be banned. It actually, and sometimes it gives you a chance in your side deck against Altergeist decks, the only decks that really play traps. So Royal Decree is a fine card as it is. If we get to the point where the meta is healthy and traps actually mean something again, maybe it would see limiting in the future, but I just don't see everything returning back to that. All right, so yeah, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of other strictly locking cards. There's one with Six Samurai, and well, you guys probably know what I'm talking about. But that card, yes, it should be banned. It's the one that can get like six materials attached to it, and then prevents your opponent from even summoning. Yes, that is insane. Let's see. And yes, that should be banned because it's just ridiculous to completely eliminate that mechanic from your opponent at all if you get that first turn. Now we're going to talk about Beanies Fiend. I don't think this card should be banned. Yeah. It's just weird. It's tough to get up on the field, and this is a card that maybe it could see limiting if we're staying true to like the principles that I'm laying here. But the cost of getting it up isn't often like, it has a pretty heavy cost of getting it up to begin with, and at least you can get a normal summon off, and it's pretty easy to get it off the field, and so I don't think it's really that bad. So I think I've discussed the most popular locking cards. As far as other locking cards that I'm thinking of, there's none that really have a floodgate or really brick wall effect. I'll call it a brick wall effect. There's cards like Widow Anchor in new Sky Striker deck. Yeah, and here's Widow Anchor, and it's not a board locking effect. It's kind of an overpowered effect in that it's basically like a change of heart, and you get to play multiple copies of them in your deck, and that's why it's overpowered. And Konami just has insane double standards when it comes to their archetypes. They want to sell these cards when it's basically like a change of heart, but they have change of heart band, and they have this at 3 copies. Insane double standard. But as far as other locking cards, feel free to comment them in the comment section, and I'll approach them how I can. But I think this is the most rational way to go about the board locking cards. Obviously, there's a lot of insane cards right now, and board locking cards aren't on the radar when meta decks are just so completely overpowered, like Sky Striker, like Thunder Dragons, like Altergeist. But one of these definitely was relevant to Altergeist, and I would still consider Draco's to be meta too. That's just my opinion. But Draco's still relevant, and I don't think there are cards that are particularly fair within that archetype. Let me know what you guys think. Yeah. So, all right, that's all I got. Peace.